I'll call this common council meeting in order. Would you please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please.
Evans?
Here.
Foodie? Here. Grattan is dismissed. Morose?
Here.
Muchka?
Here.
Brunke?
Here.
Okay, first item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Morose, second by Foodie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approved minutes of previous meetings. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion by Kayla Muchka. Is there a second? Second by Dick Evans. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approved minutes of intervening meetings. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion by Foodie. Second by Evans.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public comments regarding agenda items. Is there somebody wishing to be heard? Let the record show there are none. Communications, we have Amanda Bloomberg from Baker Tilly to discuss the 2023 financial audit results. Amanda?
Hi. Where do you want me?
Right up front here, the camera can see you better.
Oh,
If you need, if you need table space or whatever.
Okay, I'll just.
Would you like to share?
No. I'll try to keep it short. I just wanted to check, did everyone get in your packets the graphs, little graphs? It's in there, okay, good. All right, because you see a few documents in there, and the financial statements themselves are pretty long, kind of hard to understand, so we try to boil it down into what we think is useful for you as the council. So I'll mostly be talking from the graphs that should be in your packets. Besides the financial statements, that in the bound documents there, you'll see the audit reporting and insights document as well that has some required communications, talks about some internal controls, some other updates and stuff that you need to be aware of as well, so that you can read on your own time. But happy to answer any questions as I go through here. So what I'm going to do, and I don't know if you have it in your electronic documents, but I'm going to go through these graphs a little bit. So it might be helpful to have those pulled up.
They're in our.
No, they're in there on your tablet.
On your tablet.
Just at the tab on the presentation.
Yep,
part.
right next to it. Go right next to Amanda.
Okay.
Tap in the column to the side of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep. There you go. All right, awesome. Okay.
That late fee.
There are some good things about paper. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the financial results back from 23. I know we're a little into 24 now, but it's nice to revisit that, and especially going into budget time here. We're going to talk about the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the city. It's where a lot of the tax levy goes. It's where a lot of the operating costs are reported. From an outside perspective, the general fund is of particular interest because it is an indicator of the financial health of any municipality. So we really look at that fund along with the fund balance of that general fund. So we say fund a lot, but so fund balance is the assets minus liabilities. So it's the reserves on hand that can go and fund further general fund expenses. So this first graph that you see here breaks down the fund balance or the reserves into a few different categories. And so you'll see a total line at the top, and we're comparing last year to this year. So last year's the black part, this year's the blue part. So that total line indicates that fund balance as a whole increased a bit over 22. So it was about $113,000 increase in total. So fund balance is broken down into a few different categories based on the liquidity or availability of those reserves. So we're going to start at the bottom of that graph, and we're going to talk about non-spendable first, because that's the least liquid. We can't liquidate the assets attached to those reserves in order to come up with cash to pay our bills, essentially. The reason for that is these are tied up in long-term type receivables. So we're advancing some funds to TIF 4, or we have some old accounts receivable, delinquent type accounts, or we prepaid for some insurance. So those assets can't just be liquidated, or we're not expecting to collect any money in relation to those. The non-spendable piece you can see here is pretty small compared to the total, about 82,000 compared to about 59,000 last year. So about 54,000 of this is related to advances and delinquent accounts, which are related to the property tax process, and about 28,000 is prepaid insurance. If we go up the graph, we get to the assigned category, and that is essentially earmarked for specific purposes. So you'll see that increased quite a bit over the last year, to about 372,000. 190,000 of that is related to the payment in lieu of tax that is paid by the water and light utility over to the city. That's intended for the next year's budget, so that's why it is sitting here. It's available to us, but not until 24. So it's just kind of being saved for that future budget period, which we're in right now. The other part of that is the city has a fund balance policy that indicates that once we get over 20%, which is like our max range that we want to be in, we want to start earmarking those funds for something else. And so about 182,000 of that is indicated as such. The unassigned portion is that part of the reserves that are free and clear. There's no designations. It's spendable. We can use it to pay our current bills, and that is at about 511,000 compared to about 576,000 last year. So you'll see how the three categories kind of correspond. Overall, we had an increase in fund balance, but depending on how the different categories change, some go up, some go down as a result. Pretty much anything that doesn't fall into non-spendable or assigned in this case falls to that unassigned level. There is a summarized income statement here in the middle of the page that gives a very high-level view of the revenues and expenses that occurred in the general fund for the year. And you'll see where that $113,000 increase in fund balance is in that actual column. We planned on a balanced budget. We ended up with $113,000 in excess, which contributes to having a little bit more fund balance on hand than we anticipated. When I looked at the variances or the reasons for the variances, both our revenues and expenditures, or revenues were over budget, expenditures were under budget a little bit, so that created that total variance as noted here. The expenditures were kind of all over the board. Some departments were a little over, some were a little under, so there wasn't a clear explanation as to why we were 46,000 under budget on expenditures. But the revenues were a little bit more clear in that building permit revenue was up in 23, as well as investment income, which that was just a pretty normal occurrence for most of our clients in 2023 as interest rates did improve a bit. Any questions on that so far? All right. The next page, if you scroll down, This is looking at your fund balance in relation to your annual expenditures. And this is a nice percentage or ratio to take a look at over time. So you'll see what's happened over the course of the last 5 years. And I have a couple lines on here of note. First, we have a red line that takes your assigned and unassigned categories that we talked about on the previous page, and we compare those to your annual operating budget. So we look at what are you budgeting to spend in '24 and how does that total compare. And so we have some percentages that fall between the 27 to 38% over time, and it kind of goes up and down just depending on the year. The blue crooked line below is indicative of the city's policy, and that just shows you the unassigned portion of that fund balance. And so this is what the city wants to fall within that 15 to 20% range. And so you'll see that it's hovering right around there. Last year was up to 25%, but we're back down close to that 20% range in '23. You'll see some other reference points on there with some medians from other clients that are similar in size that we track this information for. But that's just helpful to see how you kind of compare with those other types of communities. Any questions on the fund balance? So I guess in conclusion, you're kind of right where you want to be. As of the end of '23, your unrestricted, or that red line, is sitting in a pretty good spot too, because really you do have access to more than just the unassigned. You have the assigned as well, so that makes that percentage a little bit higher. Any questions? I think I didn't explain very well. Okay. All right, we're gonna go to the next page, and we're going to talk about general obligation debt. So that's another area of interest when external parties are looking at the city's finances. General obligation debt is the debt that's issued and secured by the tax levy. It's different than revenue debt that the utilities might issue. Those revenue debt is secured by the user charges. So you charge rates to pay back that debt. In this case, for general obligation debt, it's generally secured by the tax levy. If you look at the little chart or the table near the bottom of the page, you'll see the breakdown of what the general obligation debt and revenue debt look like. And you'll see that the city has about $3 million outstanding at the end of the year of GO debt, and the utility has about $1 million. So while the utility has a share of that GO debt, the utility is responsible for paying that back. They're charging user rates in order to pay that back. So that's not the city's responsibility. So that all to say, if we're looking at the graph on top, this shows us how close we are to our general obligation cap that we have. So the cap is equal to 5% of the city's equalized value. And so that changes over time. It generally goes up because our equalized value also goes up, and that's indicated by that black line there. So you see how that has kind of crept up over time. The red line is the actual amount of GO debt outstanding. So that includes both the city and utility share. And so that, has gone up a little bit as debt has been issued a little bit faster than what has been paid off. Currently, when we look at how much debt is outstanding in comparison to that debt limit, we're at about 47%. So just under half. And that's a pretty comfortable place to be, I would say, for most municipalities. It's, basically how extended are we, how close are we to our cap of issuing debt? If an emergency were to come up, can we issue debt to cover that? Or are we too close to our limit? At 50-ish%, you're sitting, you have some flexibility there. I do understand, I think the city issued some debt in '24, about $3 million, if I have that right. So that's gonna increase that percentage. Yeah, so that's gonna increase that percentage quite a bit, so when we look at this next year, it's probably going to be quite a bit higher. I did a quick calculation and I estimate with 24 payments that are planned, that they're made as planned, that we're right around 67%, probably at the end of 24. So that's getting up there. I probably wouldn't recommend going much higher than that, but knowing also that some of this is utility related, that, you know, we're not taxing for all of that, but just something to keep in mind. All right, the next page then also looks at debt service or the general obligation debt, and it compares our annual principal and interest payments to our annual operating costs. So basically, how much of our costs are related to debt payments, and it's kind of like our debt ratio, maybe from a personal standpoint. At the end of, or for '23, our debt payments were right around 500,000. Our non-capital expenditures were right around 3.8 million, so that put us about 13% as far as how much our debt is of our annual cost. And so basically, some benchmarking here, anything under 20% is sitting pretty good. So I think, you know, you're not overburdening the city with, you know, the repayment schedules for that debt, as long as that, you know, stays pretty smooth over, even with the new debt issuance, you should be in pretty good shape with that. Any questions on that? Anything I talked about?
Just backing up, you said that the 67% mark with the $3 million we're taking on for the next borrowing, that's calculated in the payments we have for our present debt?
Yeah, yep. So just a quick look told me how much you're supposed to be paying in '24, and so I took that off.
So that still brings it up to 67%.
But one of our loans is completed this year, so we'll have one last loan payment, but then we'll be taking on another one, so I kind of just replaced it.
Just replaces it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the financial advisors are pretty good at smoothing out those payments and,
Yeah.
you know, not creating big, you know, peaks and valleys in those payment structures. Anything else? Any other questions on any of the other documents? Yeah, still looking good. Got a lot of reserves on hand, which is good from that perspective. You know, just kind of keep an eye, make sure we're not issuing more debt at this point.
Any questions for Amanda? As always, you do a nice job. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Any other discussion regarding that? Seeing none, then I'll move on to approve payments of bills, checks for $853,303.52, electronic transfers of $200,268.62. Is there a motion to approve payment of bills? So moved. Motion by Merles,
Second?
second by Foodie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Merles?
Aye.
Foodie?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
Mushka?
Aye.
Rungy?
Aye.
Payment of bills have been approved. Next we have communications or reports of officials. Approved mayoral appointments. Whereas the mayor has diligently searched for individuals willing to give of themselves by serving on the Board of Appeals And whereas the mayor wishes to make the following appointment. Board of Appeals, Earl Pampern is an alternate, his term goes for 8 through 2027. Robert Hoffeld, term goes 8 to 227, and Ken Steffen, 8 to 227. Now therefore it be resolved that the Common Council City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council City of Juneau this 13th day of this 2024. I entertain a motion to approve resolution 27, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by Rongi, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Morose. Any further discussion? These are all re-ups. I do have one open position by Mr. Skalma. He has left the community. So if anybody is interested in serving on the Board of Appeals, I would wish that they would get a hold of me. Other than that, these are all people that have served for several years. No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Rungy,
Aye.
Morose,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Rudy,
Aye.
Maschka.
Aye.
Resolution 27, 2024 is passed. Clerk Treasurer, anything to report?
I have nothing to report.
Moving on, the written report, building permits, police department report, Juneau Fire and Rescue, Juneau EMS report. Any questions on those? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports, committees, commissions, and boards. Library report, Connie.
Just finished up our summer reading program. We had 205 participants in that. Read over 168,000 minutes, so that was exciting. Have a couple of shingles that are off the hip ridge line of the roof, so I'm checking into what that's about with the roofing company that did it a few years back. And we have a new launch on the new catalog for the Monarch system this week. It has better search features. It's more streamlined, more organized. You can keep your search history, your favorites lists and all that. And it's just nicer and prettier and easier to use. So we're excited to get that going on Thursday.
Any questions for Connie? You're settling in well?
Yes, yes.
Like I said, welcome back.
That never gave me my budget too early.
Right off the bat. Here you go.
Welcome.
Your predecessor planned then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, Plan Commission, Dave is not here. We meet. No,
Cancel.
we did not, okay. Moving on, Finance Committee.
Finance, we had a meeting last week. We reviewed a bid that was submitted for a council table, for council chambers. The price for a custom-made three-piece double-wing table was $5,833.37. We still have contingency funds from last year's budget that could be used. But we had questions about the layout and the materials being used for discussion, or for construction. So we didn't take any action on it, and Megan's gonna seek the further details that we're asking for. Then, let's see, we previously passed a resolution. Just hang on me a second, please. We previously passed a resolution that was approved at the council that approved capital requests for 2025. The committee approved adding the Miller Street Mill and Overlay project to the resolution. Doing this street in conjunction with the East Oak Street reconstruction project could result in savings of $20,000 by combining resources. So I'm going to go ahead and read that resolution. Resolution 23-2024 amended. Approve capital requests using 2024 general obligation debt funds, whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed quotes for each department's capital requests, and whereas the Finance Committee recommends approving the following requests. East Oak Street reconstruction, $638,490. East Oak Street resurfacing project, $416,020, right? Northwestern Avenue resurfacing project, $209,330. Refurbished ladder truck, 2371, $428,109.94. Repair fire truck, 2361, $75,000. Fire hose, 8 pieces of 5 by 100 stores fitting, $7,571.20. Squad car and equipment, $62,777.72. Police department server, $9,199.22. Tasers, 4 of them, for $5,368. Fire station furnace, $6,260. Public safety building parking lot seal coating, $7,185. New backhoe loader, case 580 SN, $94,528. Library window replacement, $97,560. Community center roof replacement, $65,990. Tennis court resurfacing, $13,200. Miller Street mill and overlay project, $66,960. Whereas the Finance Committee recommends using the 2024 general obligation debt funds towards the approved listed items, now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 13th day of August 2024. I move for passage of Resolution 23-2024 amended.
Motion by Evans, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Muchka. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Is that, how many bids do we have for all these projects? I mean, we should have had competitive bids for these. Like the library windows, all these, that is the original estimates of these projects, but it seems like we should have had bids on some of the stuff, the windows.
The windows did have a bid.
Huh?
So the windows did have a quote, and she was asked, Janet was asked to get further bids from other companies, and I've already spoken with Connie about that.
Yeah.
So that's already been addressed.
Well, I think this one, the amendment specifically, like the amended portion, is the Miller Street Mill overlay project. That bid, wouldn't that be directly MSA related because MSA is doing Oak Street? Or
MSA does the bids.
yeah,
for
so
us
that
on
would
our
be
behalf.
that would be through MSA. Would be the bids for
And
that.
that isn't even definite yet.
No, it's just
That's a
an
budget,
approximate.
that's a budget figure.
Would you
That will be part of the bid when we do the last block of East Oak Street.
Right. I just, like, another example was the community center roof replacement. How many, do we have bids from different companies for that?
Joe
Okay.
got them.
You still got
Yeah.
it? Okay. It would be
Yep,
nice
they were
to-
asked,
And those are-
they were asked to get numerous
Bids?
bids for their
Okay.
projects, yeah.
All right.
I mean, some of them, of course, some of them that are listed, it's hard to get bids on some of the things, like the fire truck and stuff like that, because there's only certain companies that do that. But the other ones, department heads did a really good job by providing the documentation that they needed, so.
All right. I just want to make sure we're doing
Oh,
a
yeah.
good bidding on it.
Yep. Yep, it was
So you're
requested.
sick back with that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, just the challenge of, borrowing for such a long period is that these bids sometimes are only good for 6 months.
Right.
I mean, so there has to, that's also a challenge in getting bids, because we're bidding it now, but we might not get it for a couple of years.
Right.
And so the company
Well, I just want
process it.
I just had
Yeah.
questions, it's that all these figures seems as they're all the same figures that we had with the original assumptions. We had nothing here.
Again,
And that
like
seems
you're,
kinda odd. That we,
The only thing that got amended on this though was
Just in red.
Millard Street.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was added to the list, so everything else has been already approved by council.
Okay.
like the lead item, the East Oak Street reconstruction, that's subject to bid yet. You know, that's MSA's estimate for that project, so hopefully it'll come in less.
All right.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Evans,
Aye.
Maschka,
Aye.
Foodie,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Rungy.
Aye.
Resolution 23-2024 is passed.
All right, then the next thing, Dan Zhang joined us and submitted a quote for a new ambulance. Payment for the ambulance is due on delivery. And we have a resolution. Resolution 28-2024, approved purchase of ambulance using future debt proceeds. Whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed a quote for $430,618 to purchase an ambulance for Juneau EMS. And whereas the Finance Committee recommends approving the purchase of the ambulance from Foster Coach Sales not to exceed $430,618. And whereas the Finance Committee recommends payment will be taken out of future debt proceeds as the estimated delivery date is 825 to 850 days after ordering and payment is due on delivery. Now therefore be resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 13th day of August 2024. I move the passage of Resolution 28-2024.
Second.
Motion by Evans, second by Foodie. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to table this item, due to lack of, agenda and minutes, in the past, since it started. I have nothing against an ambulance, but the state of Wisconsin has an open meeting law. This item was not on agendas, nor was it in the minutes until this last week. Now, early in June, I heard that we were gonna buy an ambulance. I think I sent you an email on that, but I think we were on vacation at the time, all right? Asking, we're buying an ambulance. I went back to all the minutes and all the agendas, and I can't find anything about an ambulance. And we cannot act on something that was not posted, you know, or approved, you know, it has to be posted.
Let me address the open meetings issue. You've got it on your agenda right here.
Yeah.
Resolution 28-2024, approved purchase of ambulance using future debt proceeds. So as far as an open meetings violation, there is one, because it's noticed tonight. Now, there may be reasons to approve it or not approve it, but it is on the agenda.
Tonight.
Right.
But when they were told to order this thing in June, and I don't know when the contract was signed, it was never on an agenda, it was never in a meeting, and it was never in the minutes. And we are, if we can sell it off or whatever, it doesn't make a difference. We are incurring debt. The city of Juneau is incurring debt for a future assembly of people here. All the people sitting in these chairs, and 5 years, 4 years from now, they gotta come up with a reason to pay for that, or a way. So we're incurring debt, or we're incurring obligation, and that has to be posted on an agenda beforehand, and that there might be action on that. And there also has to be in the minutes that there's action on that, of this sort. And unless somebody's got a different set of minutes that is online, none of that happened.
I believe capital purchases were discussed. We didn't list each individual capital purchase. So as a whole, capital purchases was noticed and discussed.
Then why isn't it with capital purchases?
Because it's a future
wasn't
borrowing.
Well, yeah, but you're still incurring debt. You can't incur debt on something and say, we're gonna buy we'll say we're gonna buy, some oddball thing. 4 years from now, they're gonna pay for it.
But typically, historically, we've always borrowed every other year. So in order to keep our debt levy, you know, consistent with what we've been doing for a long time now, the next time we were to borrow would be in 2027.
Well, you know, that's fine. But the fact of the matter, there's a item that was never on an agenda and never in any of the minutes. And now it comes up here, and
What
we're
it was
saying,
though was on finance. It was on the finance agenda and it came from.
this last one.
Right, but it
How
was
come-
on an
So-
agenda.
Okay, well, when was this signed?
Yeah, when was this contract signed?
June?
June.
All right,
And
so.
there was nothing
So we
during
signed a
that whole
contract.
time.
See, I wasn't in the know, right? I don't know anything about an ambulance, right? And people say, whoa, we're getting an ambulance. Like, well, I don't know, I'm on the council, I have no idea that we're getting an ambulance. We signed a contract in June for a $430,000 item that was never approved through the council.
I was encouraged to sign that, and I said nothing will be signed until such time that we secure financing for that. I sent that out to Dan Zank, I sent it to Megan, and any other party that was inquiring about it. And I think they'll back me on that. And I said, we still have to pass it through the common council. So that was put on Richard's agenda. Maybe we had, it went through public safety, it was approved at public safety.
No.
It was a meeting that you must have missed then.
No, I went through all the minutes for all
And
that.
then we got
And all
some-
it said is that Dan was gonna set up a committee to buy an ambulance. That's it. Boom. Never came back to public safety.
No, he presented in public safety
Well-
prior to going to finance.
I don't know.
When did we, so this contract got signed in June?
Because we had a
Didn't
price, we
submit
had a
it, so I
price
don't know.
deadline to meet. And then Dan also said we have the right to be able to nullify that contract by the end of this month, right?
Well, you can hop up whenever you want. I mean, you don't pay for it until it takes delivery.
What we did in June locked in that pricing, is what it was.
Is there any consequences if we pull out of that contract? Is there anything in the small print?
Well, you don't get to pull that price up, but if the price jumps dramatically, I mean, you're gonna pay more money.
That 6-month model changeover in each year is probably what impacted that. is what it was.
That's,
See, but that's all irrelevant. We have an open meeting law in the state of Wisconsin. And if we're not gonna follow the damn open meeting law, why should any of our people follow any of our ordinances? Not a reason at all.
I guess I'm confused to what the open meeting law, the meeting was posted.
Not,
So-
not this one.
No.
Back in June,
That meeting was posted,
not for buying an ambulance.
but an ambulance was listed on capital requests.
It's
So,
not-
and
it's not in the minutes anywhere.
do you know how many other things we discussed that night? Quite a few.
Right.
And they're not all listed on there because they weren't approved with this borrowing. So there were a lot of items that we went over.
There always is a lot of items that we do
Yeah.
not, but we
If a
generally
mistake
aren't
is-
signing a contract to commit ourselves.
There's 0 open meetings issue this evening, because you have right on there that you're approving or not approving purchase of an ambulance using future debt proceeds. So it's properly noticed here.
All right, so if we, my other issue is if that contract started in June, the 820 days started in June. So the 820 days, we're gonna have to pay for that ambulance by the end of 2026.
27. We're pushing out as far as.
All right, so we have all of 25, 365 days. All of 26, 365 days. And at least what, 190 days? That puts us in like 900 days. I mean, I would like a calculation right now of what that date in June plus the 365 days and the 365 days, what is that date? Somebody should be able to bring that up on a calculator. But I think it's coming in before 2027.
no, we're taking delivery March of 27.
That might be fairly close.
Yeah.
I really have enough. The point is, that there's an open meeting law on this there for a reason. That if they're gonna do something like this, and my theory is, you know, start from the beginning, have the damn meetings over again, put it right up the line and do it right.
But we did,
Well,
it
I-
was
I-
And you
listed
come to the
as
public,
finance.
public safety, right then,
It doesn't
and say,
come
this is
from
the
public
ambulance we're
safety.
buying. Look at it, do you think it's a good idea or not? They may or may not, and it should be on an agenda.
So then,
And if
with
we
that
approve
logic,
it-
do we have to go back and every single item that was put on a capital project, each of those heads of departments need to go to their committee, get each of their capital projects approved before it goes to finance, and then we re-approve all of the capital projects, because that's the process you're asking us to do for an ambulance.
Actually, that's the way it used to be done. I don't know if it's been
It
done
doesn't, it
anymore.
hasn't been.
But that's the way it
done
used
that
to be done.
Yeah, that's, if rec wants a capital project, they come to the rec committee, we look at what the rec director says we need, and the rec committee says, yes, those are what we will promote is our capital projects. Yeah, that first comes from your committee, and then to finance, that's how it would go.
It never came.
Okay,
It never came up.
Let's make this more civil, I'm not sure why, like, it feels that, okay.
No, I don't mean
No,
to, I just,
No, it just,
it is
it feels very
frustrating that
accusatory
I've been
and I
an
don't make it
alderman
personal,
here
like
for
attack.
years, and I am the last to know that I'm not even opposed to the ambulance. What I'm opposed to never being informed that we were getting an ambulance, that we had a signed contract in June for an ambulance, and people say, oh, we're getting an ambulance, you're a council member. I have no idea what you're talking about. Because every year, departments come up with all kinds of things they want, all kinds of things. We don't get, they're not granted all those things. So just because it's in some minute that we're gonna consider an ambulance, that's probably, I think Dan's been asking for an ambulance
Nope,
for
it's first year.
first year, well, but there's been other things that
Right.
been asked for, that we've denied for years and years and years. So I would know that this was the lucky year that we're gonna get the ambulance, and I'm blindsided with, we're getting an ambulance.
Dan would like to address that.
So back in February, I went to the public safety committee and said, hey, I'm putting the committee together to get prices for an ambulance. And our plan was to do it in 2025. I got a notice to attend a meeting on May 9th. Please bring your information to a finance meeting. I brought my information to the finance meeting. Finance was at that meeting. We talked about it. We all talked about it, and they said, hey, since this isn't coming up till 27, we want to lock the price in, and we'll discuss how we're going to pay for it in 27. That was what I was told. So we had another meeting that was put on the agenda just last week, and that's when it was approved. That's how I saw it. So
I brought that very point up, Jim. I said, I feel kind of funny about obligating future councils to future debt. So I didn't bring that point up, but the signing of the contract, number one, was to lock in the price. That was something that Dan emphasized strongly, that if we want to save $60,000, $70,000 on, this is the model change, the half-year point. We lock it in. He also informed us that we got through most of this year to be able to opt out of the contract if things wouldn't work out finance-wise. But we looked at our number one projects and list as it is in front of you. It does not show the ambulance on there. It does show it for future borrowing, which I questioned it the last time we had the meeting. Now it's being put before you to act or.
And it would also seem that this current borrowing, we would have enough to pay for it. Why does it have to be future borrowing?
Well, we don't have enough to pay for it. Not with all the items we got listed here, so.
I thought we had about 500 unassigned.
And it's 3.
What did we calculate? I got it in
We
another
have
folder.
363,000 unassigned, and that, and now 300,000 unassigned because we just approved the bill and all.
That was also a point I brought up. We got to be very careful that it's easier to go out depending upon the economy 3 years from now. We got to be very careful that all these funds don't get spent. It's probably going to be easier to go out and borrow $250,000 than $3 million again next time around. But I can't. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to be at this time. But this was agreed to and was kind of one of the capital items that I thought everybody was on board with. Maybe
I'm not,
maybe
not
I'm
on
wrong.
board with it, but
Well, up until today, there wasn't anything to be on or off board with because it wasn't approved by finance until last week. So now is the forum in which if you don't want to spend the money on this, you vote no. That is the procedure, that is the forum.
Right.
Is finance, it was brought to finance, finance approved it, now it's at council. So council can either choose to approve or not approve it.
but there is a contract.
The
I know
contract
we
just
can- I know
locks in
we
the
can-
price.
I know, we can get out of the contract, it just.
Yeah, the point is, the process was wrong. The process.
But I can assure you,
was
Jim,
illegal.
that there was no violation of open meetings laws.
Right.
Everything was open, there was nothing under the table. I can
No,
assure
that-
you.
Yeah, I guess I
and that's
just-
very
I don't
clear,
like
and that's
the-
clear here, there's absolutely zero open meetings law.
Yeah, I don't like the public assertion of someone's character, that something was done seedy or something was done mishandled with a malicious intent. I'd like that to be on the record because it seems that this always comes up where we throw around procedure and things, but only when we're in front of a group, and I personally don't enjoy, as part of finance and public safety, I was in all of those meetings, I don't like that it is coming across very much like an attack on the integrity of council, and so I just wanna clear up that if process is ever not followed, I think as citizens of Juneau and as fellow council members, we should take the inquisitive approach rather than the accusatory approach moving forward. That's all I need to say about
If you
it.
don't want to take it as accusatory, but it's not meant that way. It is meant as a legal matter, pure and simple.
Right, with a lot of not attorneys speaking on a legal matter, and when we have an attorney that
Right.
gave you a legal answer, it was not accepted. So I think
Right.
just moving forward, I would appreciate a little more decorum.
Well, if there's something that I believe was wrong, and if some of these nice people watching on this video takes it to the DA, he's gonna come out, he's gonna ask the same questions I'm questioning.
No, the DA wouldn't even pursue this, it's on your agenda tonight as to whether or not to purchase. So your job is to decide, I'm in favor of this, I'm not in favor of this.
So
That's
you-
your only job.
Are you saying that for them to sign a June contract without any notice to anybody is a violation?
No,
It's not a
you've heard-
violation?
Yeah, it's not a violation. You've heard it went up through finance, you've heard it followed the proper channels that way, not a violation.
So you don't have to post anything?
And if you've got a contract that says you can get, I haven't seen the contract, but assuming the contract says you can completely get out of it, you're not bound until you approve it. No, of course, it's not a violation.
So your argument is, as long as we do something in the long term, it is not a violation not to post something? We shouldn't have to post
it's-
Well,
agendas.
was
It's-
it
it's posted right
I'm
here.
confused to what was it.
There's no
posted,
question on the
Jim?
posting, you've got your posting right here.
Yes, there is.
And your
Is there one
question
from
is-
June there?
No, because you're at the August meeting. Your August meeting,
All right.
if you
Go
look,
back- Go
you know,
back to June.
look right at your agenda. It says C, number 8C3, Resolution 28-2024,
Right.
approved purchase of ambulance using future debt proceeds. This is when you're deciding whether or not to do that with future debt proceeds. It's up to you. You could perfectly logically come to the conclusion that I don't want to incur that debt in 2027, and you'd vote it down. Or you can say, I think that this is an important thing to get, and I think it's something we want to spend money. But now is your decision on whether to do that.
I cannot
It's
vote.
exactly
I can't vote
correctly posted.
for something that was done before.
The DA would never prosecute anything like this. There's zero basis to it.
I'm not saying it's I guess my concern is I might have voted differently on the capital, because I would have said, I think that ambulance might have been more important than something else, and I would have wanted it included in this.
I think the intent was that it was gonna be included in this borrowing. But the
No,
more we,
no, I
the
just
more we
heard
talked
wrong
about
wasn't.
it, the farther we pushed it out, since he was able.
Well, we didn't wanna
we didn't need
wanna
to.
allocate almost $500,000
Right.
worth of borrowing that we won't actually use until the next
Right.
borrowing. 'Cause
Right.
then we would be like, oh, why are we incurring an additional $500,000 worth of debt that we're not going to even touch
And I would
until
like
the
to-
next debt?
Okay,
Just
I-
on the
that's
Which is
fair
what
enough.
finance discussed when we said, let's just push that and we'll use
And I
things
just
that
would
we
have
need
liked
now.
known that whole discussion so that I could have looked at the capital borrowing and said, okay, we're gonna push that out because we won't get it till 27.
In the June
But to not
finance-
have known, any of it is, I guess, I'm just saying, I
The
think.
June finance
So
agenda.
I guess I'm
was
confused though,
posted.
because doesn't finance decide, doesn't finance decide which capital projects we approve or not approve?
And we don't list every single one.
So
I
then-
know this
so
was
then-
discussed in public safety, and it was also, then it was forwarded to finance. And it was one of the items, and the reason it wasn't part of the current borrowing is because the ambulance takes 2 years or whatever number of days those are. That's why we agreed, we're gonna do the borrow, we need to lock in that price now for future borrowing. And that's what the discussion was, I believe.
Okay.
Would not have signed that if I didn't know we could get out of it.
I mean, is that correct, Dick, I think, as we discussed it?
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna be able to take receipt of that ambulance for at least 2 years.
It was not included in the minutes because it wasn't one of the items that we approved.
Yeah, but minutes can have a lot of other things,
Well,
right?
if I would have
You can-
listed every item on this capital
And right
project
there,
that
right,
we
yeah.
talked about.
But I think that
It's on
an
that list.
item, to me, an item that we signed a contract for might have been worth a bullet point, saying, you know, we're gonna get a new, the finance is approving a new ambulance, it's not gonna be delivered till 2027.
At that time, we
A
didn't.
bullet point so that everybody says, oh, we're getting a new ambulance, and I'm like, I have no idea, never heard of it.
At that point, we hadn't approved the ambulance.
Right,
We discussed
but
it.
in June, a contract was signed.
We thought it could be, due to the long lead time that the 2027 borrowing would probably cover. That's what we discussed. We did not approve anything.
that's why
But
you're done.
minutes can be, general discussion about things, it's not
Then I
everything
would
that's approved.
suggest the next capital project meeting, you should come, that the finance has the next capital project meeting, please join us. It's an open meeting.
Because we covered a lot of ground. And that's what the
Any other discussion?
Of anybody here who would like an ambulance in this board, it's me. I did that for 25 years. I got no problem with it, buying the ambulance. It's the process. And the process should be that public safety says yes.
And we did, we discussed it.
Public safety, we never said yes to
We forwarded
that.
it to finance.
Yeah.
When did we, show me in the
It was
minutes.
before you were on council, it was in February of
It's
this
not in the
year.
minutes. All it said in those minutes is he wanted to set up a committee. That's what it says. To buy a new ambulance. Nothing else.
Well, I guess.
And it
the
should,
one-
and it should have gone back to us.
I guess the
as a
one thing we
committee.
should all know
And then
about
it
is
should go to
to be more
finance.
specific with your meeting minutes.
And, yeah,
So I guess if we learned anything from this conversation, then
because, well, if it isn't written, it doesn't exist. It
I've
didn't
said
happen.
that before.
Yeah, if it isn't written
So-
down, it doesn't happen. It didn't happen.
But it happened last week.
Yeah, but even in June, when you talked about it, if it's not in the minutes, it didn't happen.
And that should have been recorded someplace, I don't know where it was.
But it was an agenda item this month, so it did get
It was
passed
not
by
an
finance.
agenda item, and the results were not mentioned in the minutes either.
It was
Finance
this
last
month,
week.
Jen.
Not before that.
Okay.
You have
May proceed.
June, July, August, and on in August, and never was mentioned to anybody.
Okay,
You have a motion on the floor,
Motion on
the
the
tabled
floor.
issue. The table.
no, there's already a motion on the floor to accept that.
I gotta,
So I have to ask for a vote on the first motion.
Evans,
Aye.
Foodie,
Aye.
Maros, Maschka,
Aye.
Rungy.
No.
Resolution 28, 2024 is passed. Anything else from finance, Richard?
Just that Megan's starting the budget process and is going to give the finance committee an update at their next meeting. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Richard? Seeing none, moving on, personnel. Okay.
We had a joint meeting with utility. And the first item had to do with changing the personnel policy for years. The water, wastewater staff would work Saturdays and Sundays, 3.5 hours, and they would take Friday off. But it has become a problem of having enough staff for Fridays. So they want to work 5 days a week and get paid time and a half for their required work on the weekends. So we did pass a resolution subject to the approval of the utility commission, but it did not get passed at the utility. So we do not have a resolution for tonight. So I'm not sure what the issue was at utility, but there's no resolution. I have expressed my concern that this was going on prior, and that it took months for them to alert me that the personnel policy had been violated. And so I have shared with the department heads that the personnel policy is important and it needs to be respected. And when they make changes like this, they do need to be timely in modifying the personnel policy. And there was really no objection to it, but I am concerned when things go on and it is in violation of our own policy. So then we discussed on-call pay for the hourly employees and the challenges of that. And I don't think that, and that is also regarding utility, but I shared the challenges that might flow over into the city, and that is, again, back with utilities. And then we discussed the rule from the Department of Labor about the minimum wage for salaried employees. So our department heads are salaried employees, and there are a couple of them that will not meet the minimum wage requirement from the Department of Labor as of January 1. And if they don't meet that, they have to become hourly employees, non-exempt employees, and we have to pay them time and a half. The committee asked me to contact the labor attorney, which I did, and the labor attorney has informed me that it is a final rule. There have been a couple of objections filed in the state of Texas. There's been no injunction filed. So as of now, it's a final rule, and either we come up to the salary rate that the Department of Labor has issued, or we have to have non-exempt department heads that get time and a half. So that will be a further discussion at a later meeting. Let's see, we went into closed session, we approved a time off without pay. And we also talked about wage information. I had asked the departments to give me their wage comparison on the 5 cities, Hartford, Worcester, Columbus, Waupun, I'm missing one.
Salty or too.
Waterloo.
Waterloo.
Yeah, Waterloo. That's
All right. So I distributed the information I had to the committee members. We did decide that we were going to look at individual positions versus giving across the board considerations. And so that is also another thing that we will look at an additional meeting. And that is it. I do have some more wage information for the personnel members to take for you from another department.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it. I don't have any resolutions.
Public safety, Jane.
Public safety did meet, and on August 13th, well, the last meeting, July 25th. We, at that time, did not take action on we discussed semi-traffic on East Center Street. We reviewed possibly approving a Class B license, but at that time, there's no action because the application was withdrawn. And we also reviewed closure of Lincoln Drive on August 24th with the Recreation Department and Juneau Utilities, and that was approved to close Lincoln Drive. And that was that meeting, and we were all at tonight's special meeting, so that's my report.
Questions, Eugene? Moving on to your resolutions.
Okay, we have first, Resolution 30, 2024, approves 6-month Class B license for the 1850s Inn LLC at a Joss concession stand. Whereas the 1850s Inn LLC has applied for a 6-month Class B license to host Juneau Softball League to begin
Go ahead.
on August 14th, 2024, and whereas the 1850s Inn LLC has filed proper applications at least 15 days prior to the scheduled league, and whereas the 1850s Inn LLC must have all beer and seltzer delivered directly to the Addie Joss concession stand, and whereas the Juneau Police Department and Public Safety Committee have both reviewed the application for this license and both recommend approving this license. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 13th day of August 2024. I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 30, 2024.
Motion by Foodie. Is there a
So I was
second?
asking for a motion. Oh, never mind.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Morose. Further discussion. Number one, that is not the Addie Josh concession stand. Addie Josh concession stand is the hardball diamond. This is the concession stand on the softball field. I don't know if we have a name for it or not. It's always been the softball concession
Yeah,
stand.
it's a softball concession.
So,
Okay,
with that change,
okay.
any other questions or comments?
It should just be called the concession stand or
The softball field.
Concession.
softball field concession stand. Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll make the change to change it from Addie Joss to the softball concession stand.
Second.
Motion by Foodie, second by Rungy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Sorry, just let me finish my notes here. Foodie,
Aye.
Rungy,
Aye.
Evans. Morose,
Aye.
Washington.
Aye.
Resolution 30, 2024 is passed as amended.
Resolution 31, 2024 was not acted on tonight in the previous public safety meeting, and that's what I have done.
Do we formally have to take action here?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Because it was, didn't meet the big forward,
Right.
Are we allowed to discuss this?
I think.
You've already discussed it at some length.
I guess I'd like your advice on how we proceed.
Well, my advice to the city is that if you have Mr. Busdom associated with it, you shouldn't be approved. It should not be approved. Now, I suspect what may happen is he won't be part of it, but, you know, the concern is they allege he's not part of it, but he really is in the background. That's what you gotta watch. But my recommendation is you cannot, given everything that's happened, it would not be a good move. And the law supports you that you're not supposed to have a convicted felon, especially when the felonies have been associated with sexually related offenses and prostitution related offenses. You know, it's interstate commerce, but there's more to that interstate commerce. And so if it's associated with somebody like that, you should not approve it. That's my opinion.
And Megan, to your knowledge, you've given them all proper applications?
I would have to verify with Kaylee, but yes.
That's my biggest concern too. Don't want to get hooked on the technicality of
Yeah.
it.
Well, I would advise that you make sure that they get all proper applications. But my advice to you is if Mr. Busdom appears to be associated with that application, the law tells you that you should not have someone convicted of those types of offenses.
So in your opinion, they are good to go with him not listed as a part owner or part agent or being part of the
With the
agency?
caveat that if you find that that was a ruse and it's simply another person, being the agent, but you realize that he's involved in that, then that's a ruse, and he really is the agent. You know, the person convicted of all these felonies cannot say, well, you be the agent, but I'll be running it. You can't do that.
And if that is proven, that he is still affiliated, does that nullify their application or their ability to have an agent?
Right, because essentially they perpetrated a fraud. They've alleged that somebody without a record is the one who's the agent, when in
How
fact
do you prove that?
somebody with this.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously you could have proof issues.
Okay.
But my advice to you is that you should not approve with anybody. We're not singling out Mr. Buslam. Anybody in the world who's been convicted of either sexual trafficking or prostitution or interstate commerce for purposes of prostitution, anything related to that, no matter who the person is, you should not be approving that person as the agent. Now, if you get an agent who doesn't have any record,
Yep.
you gotta prove it.
We don't have grounds to
You don't
turn
have
him
grounds to disapprove it, but
Okay.
what you want to avoid is some kind of fraud being perpetrated in the city where they say, you're the agent, but then the person who's been convicted of these offenses is really the one running the show.
I wanted you to put that out on the table for the council's benefit and for anybody at home watching, that we don't have as much control as what everybody thinks we do.
Right.
Oh, very little.
And I think
Yeah.
upon your
Freedom of
advice
speech
and
is
the
what it's-
advice of our Dodge County Sheriff, we took the necessary action.
Right,
Okay.
you did.
All right, moving on. Public Works, Dave is not here.
They did.
We did not meet. Cable TV, Jane, we did not meet.
Cable TV did not meet, but we'll be meeting next Monday, the 19th at 5:30. Oh, and an update on cable TV is that we found out the Owls need to have some sort of meeting software to function and don't operate without Teams, Zoom, etc. It was tried bypassing that with no avail. The city's IT informed me we do not have Microsoft Teams and would need to purchase it. 40-minute Zooms wouldn't properly get the job done. And this is one of the items we would budget for next year. I may need to purchase extension cable for power on the old MacBook for the utility outlet and possibly USB-C extensions for both units. The cables can be from this year's budget. And there's been an occasional loss of music for the slideshow is now attributed for the second charter box timing out. He just needs to change the channel and the music will play. I've been alternating between two channels back and forth if music stops during his check-ins. And
I'm lost on that one, but okay.
I know.
You got
David knows what he's talking about. I just,
We got some antiquated equipment.
yeah, we have very outdated equipment.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about the possibility of linking meetings to our website. And we'll be looking at our 2025 budget at our Monday, August 19th agenda.
Any questions for Jane? Moving on, CDA, we didn't meet. Recreation Committee, we did meet.
We met, unfortunately, we did not have a quorum, although Jacob did give a report, so I'll share with you what he reports. He is having to relook at what we pay umpires because they need an increase in pay, as everybody else needs an increase in pay. Umpires are requiring an increase in pay, so he will gather some information regarding some pay schedules, but that will be addressed when we have a quorum. July was Park and Recs month, and they did some special programming. And Laura ran the Fit Camp on Mondays from 5 to 6. Adventure Camp had 11 participants. T-Ball had 10. Additional programs included adult sand volleyball, adult soccer, and Rage Soccer begins in the fall, and they have 70 kids signed
That's
up
awesome.
for Rage Soccer. Yeah, so that program is going
Successful.
whole hog, and they have now moved the U10 field, so it is no longer on property that we don't own, which we had a field on property that we didn't own, so that has been moved. And and Kevin and Jacob are taking care of that. And finally, the Recreation Department, along with the Juneau Utilities, are having an end-of-the-year event. It's Juneau Utilities' 110th anniversary. They're having food trucks and face painting and other activities, along with, I guess, some lottery winnings, or there's some utility is putting some things together. And in the evening of that same night, there will be a movie, outdoor movie, Up. So, August 24th, join us at the City Park for lots of fun events and buy tickets or raffles. And it's just, maybe it's just a raffle. Win big things.
There was an insert in our last utility bill.
Yeah.
It had a lot of information.
Yeah, so, yeah, spread the news that, August 24th, come to Juneau. City Park, have some fun.
Anything else, Kane?
Nope, that's it from Rec.
Utility, Richard.
Utility, of course, the 110th party,
Right, August 24th,
August 24th.
City Park.
Utility departments attended the National Night Out last Tuesday and had their equipment on display, including the new bucket truck. The commission approved purchasing new water meters, depending on funding, at a cost not to exceed $3,500. They replaced 50 to 60 meters this year and are required to change them out every 20 years. The session talked about on-call wages for the wastewater treatment employees. At this time, Alex is the only one who is required to carry a phone by his job description. And we talked about it a little bit. The issue will be discussed further at a special commission meeting that Mac wants to call later on this month. As Kay mentioned, we discussed but took no action on changing the pay structure for weekend and holiday coverage at the wastewater treatment plant. And work on the treatment plant project continues, and the new oxidation ditch and one clarifier are expected to go online by the end of August. And the water department are still looking for sample houses needed for testing that we talked about last month. A flyer's gonna be in the.
Was it there?
Was it there? Okay.
Yeah.
A flyer has been.
Get $50.
After 2 successful water samples, yes.
After 2 successful ones, $50 goes a long way.
So if they fail,
Oh, no, you're right. So this is still successful sample.
That's what all I have.
Any questions for Richard?
I'll just let you know I called and they were still looking for people, so.
I volunteered today to Alex, so I don't know. But you have to not use your water for so many hours. There is some, and.
I'll find out more Thursday.
Yeah, there is. Your
Your
house,
shower goes
your
off.
house has to be so old, you know.
I thought it was 1968.
Yeah, I think your house has to be older than 1968, so there are some criteria.
Yeah, we're
for that.
19.
It's after that too, because they use lead solder, after 68 as well, so there's still a chance you can do that. So, any other questions for Richard? Seeing none, moving on to old business.
I have a question. I saw that you were on the building committee agenda for the
I was.
county
I was,
as a representative of the city.
yes.
I mean, I was wondering if you'd like to share what that was about, because I thought last month we weren't going to do the gathering center, so.
Well, we didn't take any formal action on it, but I had a couple of councilmen that were interested in at least finding out what that would cost. So I didn't get on their formal agenda for building to ask if they would consider partnering with the city, that if we put it on the corner there, they would retain ownership and maintain it. And we would put the upfront cost to construct it. I informed that it says it wasn't decided by the city, but time was of the essence to spend those ARPA funds, so we had a no soon. So it is being advanced to the full, common, or the full board of supervisors with them accepting it unanimously.
But-
They thought it was a great idea.
We haven't
No,
promoted it.
And last month, didn't we talk about that they was gonna pave the street the way it was?
no,
We did talk about paving the street the way it was, yes.
Okay, I thought that was kind of, so we didn't decide to do anything else with it, that was my impression.
You are
from that.
correct.
This would be an option. This would be something that, like I said, I had a couple council people that were interested in finding out what the cost of this would be.
So, are we committed to MSA for the engineering?
We would have to pursue that if we want to move forward, and then you will be able to voice your opinion and vote on that.
So the county is gonna decide if they're willing to do this before, do they know that they're deciding something that this particular body has not
Yes.
approved?
Yes, I informed them that.
I was interested in
Well, I think before we would even decide, wouldn't we have to know if it was possible for us to even
Right.
do before we would vote?
Exactly right.
Or,
That's-
or you're saying we would have voted yes or no,
Because
and then
You put the
reach
whole
the
it.
person
You know,
from the-
I went and talked to the county administrator, and he said, well, we have to know that the city is on board with this intent. That was my message.
Gotcha.
So,
wasn't discussed.
that-
I did inform them that I said there's a possibility this city won't pursue this, but I want to know what your take is on it. And the four-man Buildings and Grounds Committee supported it wholeheartedly with Cameron next to me, as well as the John Nails, who's now in charge of Buildings and Grounds. They
So
thought it would
I-
be a big asset to our community and to the courthouse square as well.
But I would like to know that we would not spend any money on an engineering design until this body decides they want to go forward with it.
Absolutely.
Legally, it should come before here and
Yep.
decide yes or no.
I mean.
But then you would have a little more information, because it sounds like the county would be deciding, are we gonna pay for future maintenance of this or not? And then you would have to, it should come before you spend any money with anybody. And assuming, let's assume for the sake of argument, that the county comes back and says, we'll pay for future maintenance, and it's up to you to decide, well, do we want to spend this money or not? But you shouldn't spend any money until,
Didn't make
You know,
sense to
it's
take it
spending
any
it for-
farther if they weren't receptive to allowing us to use that.
But I did walk out last month thinking that it was dead in the water. I don't think I'm in la-la land here. I
Well, I
believe
thought the
that the
same thing.
message from last month was,
Or
there's no time, we're not gonna do it.
No, I don't think we decided anything.
Well, it was kind of the discussion last month, was, you know, that's what I thought, because the question was brought up about snow shoveling, snow removal,
Mhm.
adding to the public works department. Because it's gonna take them a whole lot longer to clean off that road. If they have to go up and around and over and through.
I walked out of here, Kay, I would have to say the same impression.
Thank you,
And then-
otherwise I feel like I'm in.
No, and I think everybody said, somebody needs to approach the county before we would move any further.
Right. And that's what happened.
But no, I walked out of here with the same impression.
Yeah, that it's too late, we're not gonna be able to spend those ARPA funds because there's a drop dead deadline and trying to get it through the county, 33 county board supervisors. You know, and then in this body where, you know, there's some opposition.
We have till December, sometime in December.
Right.
for the
I'm not
ARPA
against it,
funds.
I'm just saying that's the information I walked out of here with.
But then there has to be, you have to give MSA time to do the engineering design,
Mhm.
which is, and
Yep. Didn't pay to go any further with it if the county wasn't receptive to do that. That's where I was asked to pay.
But the design has already been created. The design was already paid for by the chamber.
Yeah.
We never paid for a design.
No.
Chamber did.
No, yeah,
Chamber.
right.
Correct.
but there's but further engineering, I mean, I'm gonna guess there's further
To add
costs.
to add to the bid.
Yes.
Correct.
that we actually
Correct.
Yes.
go through.
Okay, any other questions? Was that old business or new business?
That was old business,
Okay,
very old business.
Moving on to new business. Any questions on new? Approve bartender's license, provisional license, you want to take those names, Jane?
Sure. Provisional licenses for 45 days, Katrina Barrera, Savannah Solis, Emily Jurek, Tessa Yekel, Cecilia Scott. I make a motion to approve these provisional licenses.
Motion by Foodie, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rungy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve regular bartender's license.
Regular bartender's licenses that expired June 30th, 2025, Katrina Barrera, Savannah Solis, Emily Jurek, Tessa Yekel, Cecilia Scott, Heather Jeske, and Joshua Waldvogel. I make a motion to approve those regular bartender licenses.
Motion by Foodie, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rungy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. No other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Buchka, second by Foodie.
I didn't say either.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Was, okay.
Yeah.
Motion by Morose, second by Foodie.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. This meeting is closed.